Amani had a secret sorrow, a strong body odor that made her the subject of whispers and rejection in the village. The men of Mblima avoided her, and the women often gossiped behind her back. This is the story of Amani, who grew up in a small cocoa farming village of Mblima overlooking the vast ocean. She was a quiet, hard-working girl with a heart full of dreams, but her life was far from easy. Amani lived with her grandmother, her uncle, and his wife in a modest hut surrounded by cocoa trees. Her parents had passed away when she was just a child, leaving her in the care of her grandmother, who loved her dearly. Amani had a secret sorrow, a strong body odor that made her the subject of whispers and rejection in the village. The men of Mblima avoided her, and the women often gossiped behind her back. Despite this, Amani had a gift that no one could deny, a voice so melodious it could melt even the hardest of hearts. When she sang, the birds would stop to listen, and the waves of the ocean seemed to dance to her tunes. One evening, after a long day of working on the cocoa farm, Amani and her grandmother sat under the shade of a large tree, sorting through the harvested cocoa pods. "Grandma," Amani said softly, her voice tinged with sadness, "why do the villagers always look at me like I'm different? Why can't they see me for who I am?" Her grandmother paused, wiping the sweat from her brow, and looked at Amani with kind eyes. "My child, people fear what they don't understand. But remember, you are special. Your voice is a gift from the ancestors. One day, the world will see your worth." Amani sighed, her fingers tracing the small pendant around her neck, a good luck charm her grandmother had given her. "I just want to leave this place, Grandma. I want to cross the ocean and sing where no one knows my name." Her grandmother smiled gently. "The sea is vast, Amani, and the world beyond it is even bigger. But remember, no matter where you go, your heart will always bring you back to Mblima." Every evening, after their work was done, Amani would sneak away to the edge of the sea. There she would sit on the rocks, gazing at the horizon, and sing her heart out. Her songs were filled with hope and longing, hope that one day she would leave Mblima, cross the sea, and find a place where she could sing freely and live a normal life, far away from the judgmental eyes of the village. One day, as Amani sang by the sea, a group of village boys passed by. They stopped to listen, but soon their whispers reached her ears. "Look, it's Amani," one of them sneered. "She sings like an angel, but she smells like a goat." The others laughed, and Amani's heart sank. She stopped singing and turned away, tears welling up in her eyes. Back at home, her uncle's wife, Gonifer, was waiting for her. "Amani, where have you been? There's work to be done," she scolded. "I'm sorry, Auntie," Amani replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just needed some air." Gonifer rolled her eyes. "Air won't fill our stomachs. Go and help your grandmother with the cocoa pods." Amani nodded and hurried to join her grandmother. Amani's uncle, who was in charge of selling their cocoa beans at the market, was a greedy man. Every time he returned from the market, he would give Amani and her grandmother only a small fraction of the money he earned from their hard work. He claimed the market prices were low, but Amani knew better. She had heard the whispers of other farmers who sold their cocoa for much more. Amani and her grandmother were known in Mblima for their hard work and the magical touch they seemed to have with cocoa farming. Their farm always yielded the largest and most bountiful cocoa pods in the village. The villagers whispered that Amani carried a good luck charm, a small pendant her grandmother had given her, which blessed their harvest. But despite their success, life was still hard. One evening, Amani sat breaking cocoa pods with her grandmother. As they worked side by side, her grandmother noticed the sadness in her eyes. "What's troubling you, my child?" she asked. Amani hesitated before answering. "Grandma, why does Uncle keep most of the money from our cocoa? We work so hard, but he gives us so little." Her grandmother sighed. "Your uncle is a greedy man, Amani. But we must be patient. One day, things will change." Amani clenched her fists. "I don't want to be patient anymore, Grandma. I want to leave this place and find a better life." Her grandmother placed a hand on her shoulder. "If that is your destiny, then I will not stop you. But remember, the path to freedom is never easy. One day, after a particularly successful cocoa sales, Amani's uncle returned home late at night, clutching a heavy bag of money. He was drunk and stumbled into his room, where he carelessly tossed the bag under his bed before falling asleep. Amani, who had been watching from the shadows, felt a mix
of anger and desperation. She thought of all the times her uncle had cheated them, leaving her and her grandmother with barely enough to survive. That night, as the village slept under a blanket of stars, Amani made a decision. She crept into her uncle's room, her heart pounding like a drum. "This is for all the times you've wronged us," she whispered to herself as she reached under the bed and pulled out the bag of money. Her uncle stirred in his sleep, and Amani froze, holding her breath. When he didn't wake, she carefully slipped out of the room and into the night. As she reached the shore, the waves seemed to call out to her, their rhythm matching the beat of her heart. Amani stood there for a moment, the cool breeze brushing against her face. "This is it," she whispered to the sea. "This is my chance to start over." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she sang one last song, a song of sorrow, of hope, and of a new beginning. Then, with the bag of money in her hand and the pendant around her neck, Amani stepped into a small fishing boat tied to the dock. She untied the rope, pushed the boat into the water, and began rowing toward the horizon, where the city lights sparkled like distant stars. Back in the village, her grandmother woke up to find Amani gone. She wept, knowing her granddaughter had left to chase her dreams. "Amani, my child," she whispered, "may the ancestors guide you and keep you safe." And so, Amani's journey began, a journey filled with uncertainty, courage, and the promise of a new life. But little did she know, the ocean held secrets of its own, and her path would not be as smooth as she had hoped. Part 2 in the next video. Subscribe to this channel